Okay. Hi, Nathan.
Hi, how are you doing?
Good. So if you want to give a quick overview of you, um, and then start us off by showing us some project.
Well, I guess I can start off, I'll share my screen anyway, that way it's in the background if that's all right. All right, can everybody see that?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so yeah, my name's Nathan Sampson. I've been working in the nonprofit and social services field for about 10 years now. I work with adults with disabilities. I've had several roles during that time, but my education's actually in graphic design and computer animation. Um, Trying to get back to my more tech roots, I guess you could say, and I've been thinking about making that career switch for a while, doing some online coding in my spare time. Nothing very formal though until I took this, this big step, I guess, joining Savvy Coders. So, that's where I am now. So for my project, I decided to create a game. It's a board game. I love games. I always have, board games, card games, video games. I always say the Olympic games, does that count? But you name it, I enjoy it. So, but the game I chose to make is called Bully. Bully is a card game that I created myself. So copyright pending and all that. But at its core, it's kind of like Risk, but using a standard deck of cards. You take over the board territory with the higher cards to win more chips and eventually win the game. The target audience, I would say, would be, have you ever played solitaire? Of course you have. Gets a little tiring. If you're interested in a game that's a bit more engaging than solitaire, then, Bully, I think, would be for you. So, I built it using HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. I knew going into the project it was going to use quite a bit of JavaScript. Was not quite aware how much CSS it was going to entail. So that's been a great learning experience along the way. I've learned to really dig into some of that stuff, which there are rabbit holes, that's for sure. But let me just walk you through the navigation real quick of the site, which is fairly straightforward. You have your home page that you land on here that just gives you a couple of options to either go play the game or view the instructions. The instructions page shows the game how it's played in its current state. Like I said, this is of my own creation, so there are, some play testing things that I have been going through. So if you hit the home button from the instructions page, it takes you back to the home page, of course. When you click to play the game, you have an option to choose your deck color. I thought this adds a personal touch to the game. I remember that sort of thing playing solitaire back when you had the different decks you could choose. I thought that'd be a good touch. You could also head back to the home page from here if you're not quite ready. But let's assume you are. You can go in and here's the board. If you scroll down, you have the option to quit at any time, or if you want to go view your instructions, we have tabs down here that will lead you there. Right, so quit, of course, will just take you back to the home page. And at the bottom of every page, there's a footer that actually has a link back to the home page as well. So there's always a way to get back. But to play the game, you just hit your deal button here. That'll deal out your deck, and there's that red deck that we chose. If you were to quit and play the game differently, let's say you wanted to pick the gray deck, you would be the gray deck now, and then your opponent would be blue. It would change, that way you guys don't have the same color deck. Then when you deal your hand, it chooses 5 cards out of your deck at random. So this has quite a bit of JavaScript behind it right here. I have a JavaScript object with several arrays inside of it that house the cards, their images, or links to their images, and all that. That way, and then whenever you click this button, it holds those changes in state. That way, you're not risking playing the game the same exact way every time. You can see that not only is this hand different than the last time I clicked it, it's different from the opponent hand as well. Then all of these, objects are draggable. They all have a drag and drop feature, which is something that I learned along the way. Quite challenging at times, but worth it overall. Um, and the game is played in turns by people dragging and dropping these objects onto this board, which utilizes a lot of CSS grid and CSS flexbox combinations here to allow this. The grid especially allows for this overlap feature here, because you can put multiple cards on the same square in order to gain a certain point total, so you can lock it out right here. Lock it with a chip. Now you've gained a chip towards the win. No one else can take this from you, sort of thing. The rules are a little bit more complex than that, but I'm not going to go into it. We don't have enough time. But as you can see here, after we play through a couple of cards and we empty our hand, and now we get our deal hand again. And now we can deal 5 more cards from our deck, which again, we had the JavaScript is handling that to make sure that I'm not dealing out the same cards. So, each time you play the game, it's different. You get a different set of cards, as does your opponent. And eventually you get to, play some chips over there once you take over a spot. Another feature is the ability to knock people off the board. It's kind of why it's called bully, right? You can attack people and get them off the board. When you do so, we have a discard pile down here. It's got its own drag and drop listener going on. Get a chip for that. Great. But it can go back and forth. Now, this person can take the 10, drop it off here. But that's kind of the functionality of the game and how it looks. There was a lot of obstacles that came along the way that, holding that stuff in state with the with JavaScript was a very fun challenge. A lot of this CSS stuff was challenging. In the future, I would love to see more automation. I only had so much time to make this a functioning board. Right now, it works as if it were made of actual paper and cardboard. Everything moves around the way you would have to do it in real life, but there isn't that nice automation that you would want to see in a digital game. And so future iterations, I would love to have that. I would love for the opponent to have an AI kind of component where it plays its own cards. And maybe there are levels to the AI to get more challenging. As you play the game, you can up the challenge rating. I would love to do a player versus player where your friend has the game on their phone, you have it on yours, and you take turns. You get a little alert. Matt played 7 on A3. Great. I would love to see that. Of course, to do that, it'd have to be a little more mobile friendly than it is in its current state. That's definitely something for future iterations as well. But I have, like I said, this is based off a concept that I have in a notebook somewhere, and this is a more stripped down version of the game. I would love to see it with multiple different skins and looks to it. Maybe a fantasy setting or a recess setting, which is where the name Bully originally came from. Maybe for kids, like a simpler game. But some of the obstacles that came up along the way were just trying to manage the scope, of course. The game could have been much bigger, could have had all these automated features I'm talking about. I had to, along the way, use a little bit of an agile mindset to think about, okay, where's my minimum viable product going here? Learning all these CSS features as well has been challenging, but other than that, there's lots of obstacles, but several I've overcome and that I feel, very proud about. So I guess with that, I'll leave it up to questions for everyone.
Nathan, if you had to do this again, would you have chosen this type of game, especially with the cards?
This type of game with the cards? If I were to have chosen a game, I think so, yes, because this is a project that means a lot to me because it's a personal project of mine. It's something that I would, could envision. I think it helped me stay passionate about it for sure, and it really is fulfilling seeing it on the screen,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was just thinking it adds a lot of complexity with there being so many cards in a deck and then having to think about all those different aspects.
Absolutely. So if you would have asked me that question 3 weeks ago, I would have said no, because I was really struggling with that stuff back then, right? But I've overcome quite a lot. So I do feel like I would tackle it again, especially having a little bit more knowledge.
Okay. And one more question. Is there any type of point tracker as you're going along where the chips?
At this point, there is no point tracker. That'd be a great automated feature I would love to have on there. In fact, one of the original iterations of my idea had your chips, and it just said times, and then it had a number here. And it really was supposed to keep track of how many were on the board. But instead, with a minimum viable product in mind, I decided to go for simulating just a real life, how would it look if it were laid out on your kitchen table? And if you were to play this in real life, this is how you would have to play. You would have to move the chips from a stack onto the board. And so that's the way I went with it, just to make sure that it got done, you know?
Yeah, no, I like it.
I have a question.
Sure.
So with your features, let's say I guess I'll frame it this way. Can you elaborate on one of your main features and what value will it bring when you mentioned MVP, right? Your minimum viable product, right? But what kind of value is your audience going to be doing for this game that you've delivered? What was your thought process on that?
Yeah, sure. I would, I'd be lying if part of it wasn't just, a personal thing. I like to build games, but secondly, I think it's a game that people would enjoy playing. I think there's a market out there for this type of, like I had mentioned solitaire before, that there are these types of card games that people play to pass the time. And I think that personally, I like the idea of a more engaging pastime, something that I can think and progress through, that offers maybe a different challenge each time. And so I guess that's thinking about the user aspect. What do they get out of it? Is hopefully an enjoyable experience. That's what all games, I think, are meant to do. If that answers your question, if I understood it correctly.
No, I got it. Thank you. That's helpful. Thank you very much.
Okay, Christy, did you have any questions, or James?
I did not. I actually really like this. I might need you to send me this to play once in a while. Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. Love to, yeah. The instructions to take. I'm not playing the game correctly. The way these cards are laid out here and everything are not the standard steps you're supposed to take. Just FYI, but yeah, I've played it with my wife a few times on the using construction paper and cards in real life, and we actually played it all night one night, so we enjoyed it too.
Hey Nathan, there's a question, I'm sorry, in the chat.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It sounds like you already had a proof of concept.
Yeah, thanks for sharing. Pretty cool.
So the question is, hey Nathan, thanks for sharing, and that is a pretty cool project. Did you work on this by yourself? If you were to collaborate with someone else, what challenge do you see that you would run into?
Oh yeah, so I did. So at being a game of my own design, yeah, I had free reign over how I thought it should look. At times that was a challenge, right? When I started building the project, I had no idea what it was supposed to look like. If I was building a game that existed, I would just arrange the board to look like that. But through that process, I got to make ultimate decisions on where everything was. I can see in a collaborative process, not only would there be arguments about how should we lay this out, but how about the game rules? You could easily have arguments over how is the game supposed to be played, Absolutely, from the ground up, having more control over it allows me, to move forward on ideas faster, I would say. But the collaboration though, like I said, with my wife and I playing it, she definitely had some valuable input on what she thought was best ways. In fact, I've already probably made a change to have the way that chips are played in the game, whereas before, if you attacked a spot and took it, I only put one chip on, but I believe I'm going to be letting you add two to, have the game be its namesake, bully. I want to actually encourage the attacking of locations, kind of like Risk. So yeah, it's ever evolving, and collaborative process can cause its hangups, but hopefully, drive a better product at the end.
Awesome. So a little user acceptance testing there with your wife.
Right. Exactly.
Tara, I'm sorry. Did you have a question?
Well, part of it was what was just asked, but I guess the other curiosity is it could either be the biggest challenge, or it could have been a mistake that you made that, caused you to have to redo a good portion of kind of how you were thinking about doing it or what you're going to be doing. But just give us kind of an example of maybe one of the biggest struggles that you had.
Sure. Yeah. I think early on, not early on, maybe in the halfway point of the process, I really thought that I had, at that point, I would be moving more into the raw JavaScripting of these automations that I really wanted in there. And I had to take a step back because CSS, Grid, and Flexbox, combining these in this board in this fashion and getting these drag and drops to work at all was causing me so much trouble. I was really thinking, how am I going to get this done at all? Like I guess somebody had mentioned before, I can't remember who, but would you have chosen this? Yes, I would have, but if you would have asked me during that portion of time, whenever I was struggling with CSS so badly and Grid and everything, I would have told you no. I would have said, no, this was not the way I wanted this to go. And so
Yeah.
those, that timeline stuff, that how much time I had to spend on that portion that I wasn't intending to, made me have to really rethink the scope of the project, dial back some of my expectations for the automation aspect of it, and really, focus in on getting it to be viewable, functional, and and understandable from a user's standpoint.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Hey Nathan, thanks for sharing. This
Yeah.
looks beautiful.
Oh yeah. Thanks.
And the snap and just the feel of what you got going with the drag and drop as a software developer who focuses mostly on the middleware backend. The UI is a challenge. So I'm glad that you took the opportunity to focus on the UI, because if you don't have a beautiful product, no one's going to use it. And all of the middleware and backend, there's plenty of people who can do that kind of work, but getting a really nice looking application is a challenge in the industry in general. But yeah, so with that in mind, what do you think the next step is for your learning? Like, do you have someone that you're going to reach out to? Are you looking for a framework, or like you said, creating a competitive online component? Have you looked into things like Socket.io or anything like that?
Well, I've not looked into that particular Socket.io, no, but I do have some personal resources. I do have friends who are in the coding business. My cousin in particular works building APIs. So one thought I had along the way is maybe there's a login function where you can save your wins and loss totals, and you can have a database out there that houses that and reach out and log in, log out. Working with him on that kind of feature, maybe he can help me build something like that. So yes, there is some future collaborations I've considered on that. As far as personal visions on what I'd like to do with it, I've mentioned that the AI component, working on the automation of whenever I take over a square, I would really like for the chip to just automatically move there, all these types of things. And that's a lot of just JavaScripting that I think I have a handle on how to do it, just need the time to do it, right?
Okay, we have one final question.
Okay.
If you have the budget to hire people to help you with this project, what would you delegate to your employees and what would you be doing yourself?
Interesting, yeah. I guess the CSS work, right? Those drag and drop, the drag and drop was also in JavaScript, but a lot of these getting this grid layout to work the way that it did was very challenging. If you were to look at it on my mobile, view it on a mobile, it's completely broken on mobile. So everything's squeezed together. I worked really hard for a long time trying to get it to not do that, and then I realized I'm chasing the wrong rabbit hole right now. I need to be focusing on one product here. So with the amount of challenges that was giving me, that would be something I would delegate so that I could personally focus on the JavaScripting aspect of it, which is really I think the part that gave me the most satisfaction. As challenging as it was, and as many times as I had to really stop and think or stare at the same 3 lines of code for a weekend without any progress, I still got the most satisfaction out of that. So I think that would be my answer for that, was delegate that grid layout, Flexbox stuff to someone and work on the underlying code, because going into the project, that's how I saw it going. I ended up being very wrong about that, but yeah.
Okay, awesome. All right. Well, Nathan, thank you so much. So you can hang out if you want. I'm not exactly sure how to move you back out, but you're more than welcome to stay.
Well, wherever I end up, I'll,
Well,
I might
maybe
try to hang out in the lobby if I can.
Good. And then if there's questions on the end, then you'll be around to answer more questions. So
Absolutely, yeah.
that's awesome.
Thank you all for, letting me show you my project. And the questions actually helped me think through it too. So
Awesome.
Thank you, Nathan.
thank you.
All right, Min is our next student, and I'm gonna bring him in. So he'll be joining in just a second. So he's connecting. All right. Hi, Min, how are you?
Can everyone hear me?
Yes, everybody can hear you. All right, so if you just wanna do a quick intro and tell us about you and your project, that would be great.
Right, give me a second to set up. I did a little. Okay, so I'm gonna start to share my screen if that's okay. Okay, first of all, my name is Minh Tran, and my project's name is called Transy. I did a little slideshow just to preview what my project is about and just more information about my project and whatnot. First of all, I just want to say thank you for everyone taking their time just to check out my project and more about Savvy Coders. My background and how I got to Savvy Coders is I work in real estate right now as a real estate agent, and also I own real estate properties in Cape Girardeau where I went to college, so I invest in properties and do that. I was also involved in insurance as a claim adjuster, so just a tidbit about my background. My project, again, is called Transy, and what came to this idea is I'm an avid traveler, I like to travel a lot. It's cliche as it sounds, I just enjoy traveling. The target audience is obviously travelers and people who love to get out of the country and just enjoy just a different environment. So again, a little background about the project. It's a SPA, or a single page application. Essentially, it's just a web application or sites fit in a single web page with the goal of providing a more fluid experience similar to a desktop application. The browser essentially is just saved into JavaScript and saved into computer, so they just load in a few seconds and there's no time to reload anymore. Essentially, it just saves time. Again, it's just a more fluid interaction. Some examples of the SPA is just Gmail and Google Drive. Moving on, how I got to creating Transy is just wireframing and just drawing out ideas, mock pictures. For example, to the right is just what I had an idea for what my project would look like in the front page, just a loading page, the name, and just some sidebars of where to click on. My Trello board I use to kind of help me organize and be on time and just let me know what to work on and what not to work on, and also what to kind of improve on. I've learned to use the agile methodology that I learned from Savvy Coders. We had an instructor called Vivek, who is an expert in agile and taught us his ways. Essentially, we just broke down the projects into user stories, how to kind of be more prepared, working with people, working in having Scrum Masters and just other aspects of that. And also in the end, just creating a MVP, or a minimal viable product for the product owner in the end. What Agile has taught me is just kind of do daily tasks and just adapt daily to whatever comes your way, because especially right now, just you never know what's going to pop up. So the functionality of my website, what I wanted to do is just have the user have a quick overflow, and so they can move back and forth quickly. Next, before I show the website, is just you can find my website on Netfly. It's on GitHub too. You can see the code and whatnot. I use HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and also VS Code to kind of write the code and just kind of, so that it can run properly. I used the help from TAs that was provided from Savvy Coders, YouTube videos, and kind of learn more about coding, whatnot, MDN, Mozilla, and also big help from Google. So moving on, we're going to go to my project. So this is my front landing page for my project. Just again, my name of the project, Transy, I just thought of using my last name and just kind of something that sounds good. It has a home, has a home button, cities, gallery, contact, more, and an about page. Again, my logo is your match for travel. Users can begin their search, type into the search bar you can type in. They can choose a city and learn more. Right now, I'm learning more about writing my own APIs for this site, since I couldn't find essentially a API that kind of fit what I wanted. What I wanted for this site was essentially to match a user with what their preference is. For example, when I went to other sites, they would just show you cities and like beautiful pictures and websites and, and prices and whatnot. I wanted to create an algorithm where users would, type in just answer questions into my website. And from those questions, my website would just kind of match them with cities, countries, or, places they've never been. So I'm still working on that and learning, kind of writing my own APIs. But moving on, the city page you can click on. These are all pictures from my travels. For idea for this page is just for users to kind of include pictures that they've been, on, and just kind of, it's an interactive site. People can add on to it. That's what I have for that. In gallery, again, people can insert pictures. There's more pictures from my travels. Kind of move so you guys can see. I made a contact page where users can contact me if they wanted to. It's an interactive button where they can, link straight to my email. Just kind of suggestions. Next, we have the more page, which is where users can, enter a photo URL and folder description and kind of submit the photo to my site. And then finally, for my about page, we have a welcome to Transy, kind of more. It's going to include more information about my site and also just a background on why I created it. So that's essentially all the interactive sites. Right now I use CSS to kind of create the hovering background on the buttons and also the buttons down here. Yeah. Next, I'm gonna move back to my slideshow for real quick. Some takeaways and improvements that I wanted to add to my project or whatnot was, but first of all, Savvy Coders, it was a really good experience. It's been really great working with other people of ages, different backgrounds, and just different perspectives about coding. It's been great just to, learn more about everyone's kind of how they work and how they operate. Some difficulties was kind of definitely working with the unknown of this pandemic and also trying a way to overcome it, since, we weren't able to, go into class like we did before. But now we kind of did online lectures, but we kind of learned a way to kind of fast forward and learn how to improve or learn a different way to learn. What I want to add to my site essentially is more functionality, more pictures, sample questions I want to add to the site, and also the API aspect where I want to create and learn. Like I mentioned, I'm learning to create the API just to have a functional and working website when I'm done. Also, some challenges, just learning and creating the site at the same time, having the perfect project that I had in mind, but knowing that in the 3-month time frame, I'm not going to have enough time, and having such like a vast ideas I want to add to the site. It's just not enough time, essentially. The journey, like after this, I want to continue working my site and kind of learn more from coding. As they mentioned in coding, if you stop coding, you're going to forget what you learned. So I could definitely want to continue that aspect. And then finally, I want to end with a quote that I really liked. Everybody in this country should learn to program a computer because it teaches you how to think. This 3-month program has definitely taught me how to kind of engage my brain in coding aspect and kind of learn more of what to do, what not to do. And just, it's definitely broadened my horizon. And definitely taught me that IT is definitely the new route to go in the future. So that is my presentation.
Very nice. So are we okay for questions, Stephanie?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm ready.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. So first, it's beautiful. The pictures are fantastic. And quite frankly, I think you probably have a career there as well, especially if you took those pictures. They're great. So visually for me, I really enjoy the site and those different aspects, and even where you have everything placed and the user aspect of it. But one of my questions would be, you talked about adding more functionality. What would you do first out of all of the things that you could do? You know, what would you want to get done first? Because I can see with this site how there's so many options, so many directions that you can go. How do you kind of whittle that down and figure out, you know, what you want the basic functionality to be?
Definitely,
next?
that's definitely great questions. So what I want to add is definitely the question aspect of functionality. I've actually would creating questions for my APIs when I'm going to work
Did we
on.
lose him?
What's that?
Min?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Did
Yeah.
someone ask a question?
Min?
Yeah.
I think somebody can't hear you. I don't know.
Someone
I think
said,
it's Stephanie.
sorry, someone said Min, so I'm kind of just.
Yeah, I think it's Stephanie. She might be frozen.
I'm
Give
going
it.
to
But
continue.
at least we can hear you.
Yeah, we can
Okay.
hear you, so you can proceed. I think we lost her actually. Go ahead.
Yeah, go
Sorry for
ahead.
that. Yes. So, like I said, I'm learning to build my own, like the API aspect and the question aspect. That's my most important part moving forward. It's just the main premise is of my site is to match people with locations. So the API is definitely very important. The question aspect. I want these questions to be very, detailed and very just oriented to the user that logs into my site. So that's going to take a lot of time, but I feel like that's very important to move forward. So that's what I'm going to work on next, before the more pictures or any other details. But that's definitely the first step right now.
Okay, great. Thank you.
I have a
Hey,
question.
Min.
Yeah.
Go ahead,
Go
Joe.
ahead. No, I wanted to say this is beautiful. Great job. One of the questions I have, how do you expect, basically, if you put yourself in your users' shoes, I guess,
Yeah.
how do you expect your users to use your site? And what kind of, and I just want to warn you, I'm all about value. What
Yeah.
value would that bring to your users?
So like I mentioned earlier, most sites I've visited, that traveling sites in general, they just provide, they have like a price aspect and a picture aspect. My value that I want to bring is just, I haven't found a site that matches you to a location. So that's what's going to bring value to a user. If they visit my site, they answer the questions, they're going to find a location that they liked or not like, or a place they never thought of. Maybe a place like, in Australia or a country in Africa or, in any countries in general they just never thought of. That's the value I want to bring to them when they visit my site. Functionality wise, I want, them to, when they log in, they can just quickly, scroll through my site and know where they click on, where to kind of contact me if they needed help, more about my page or just like stuff like that. That's what I kind of aim for moving forward with this site and what I want, as a user, what I want to help with if they have any questions.
So you would have preliminary elicitation, like preliminary questions to match
Correct.
with your users? Okay,
Yeah, that's what I'm
before,
working on. It's just
I gotcha.
creating like if, for example, like one of the questions I'm thinking of is how avid traveler are you? Do you prefer warmer climates or colder climates? And based on those questions, I'm going to try to create an algorithm that can kind of match a country with those questions.
Yeah.
Kind of continue from there. But that's going to be definitely a difficult process. But I'm looking forward to kind of work on that more.
That's great. That's actually a great path to take, because that will take you into more like the machine learning type of building those algorithms. This is great. And your ideas are great. Thank you. That answered my questions.
Okay, did anybody else have any questions?
I actually have one.
Yeah.
Hey, it's Christy from Doherty. Hey, so have you, it's two questions. So what do you feel were your strengths and weaknesses on doing this? And do you feel that you would have benefited from adding a team to expand this? Do you feel like if you had extra players, employees, do you feel like you could expand this even farther than what your thoughts are now with it and make it maybe even more interactive for travelers to be able to give you information to add to your website?
Absolutely. Like I mentioned earlier, it's a 3-month kind of boot camp. In the beginning, we just learned more about coding before we started. So it's definitely a learning process to kind of get to the level I was. We had essentially 5 weeks to work on a project, maybe less. So that was kind of hard to kind of adjust from learning to kind of creating the project. So some of the strength I have was definitely the picture aspect and kind of having an idea in my head what I wanted it to look like, and just more like in front, like details of what I want the site. I'm a very visual person. I want everything to look nice. And into the code aspect, I spent a lot of time on the CSS aspect, writing the code and making sure it looks really nice. Some of the strengths, just learning how to code quickly and kind of adapting to what to put onto, like creating this bar, or creating just like backgrounds for the site. Some of the weaknesses was I would say coding, because this is my first step into coding. So the 3-month aspect, I'm still learning as I go, but I'm still, like I said earlier, I want to continue learning. It's not going to be like a stop now. I'm going to continue learning code and become better. Savvy Coder is definitely, risen me to that level where I feel comfortable coding and continuing. And the team aspect, definitely, a team would definitely, kind of help me put in more ideas, what to work on in like this week, and what to work on next week, what to do now. In that 3-month span I had, definitely my site would have been, more up to date, more options, and more functionality. But the only team I had was just TAs, YouTube, and Google. So it was just me and just asking fellow classmates for questions if I had any. So I definitely used my resources, but I didn't have a team to, per se, work under, or they gave me feedback for also. But I hope that answered your question.
No, I did. And I can say for the 5 weeks, like you said, this is a beautiful site. And you did a wonderful job on that for the amount of time you had. And digging into this, this is really good.
Thank you. What's your second question, I may ask? Or is that the second?
Oh, it was kind of basically, were you looking at possibly even expanding this to where you would have like where users, other travelers could put in feedback and you'd be able to use it?
Yeah, definitely. I want
like,
the feedback.
Had you thought about that?
Yeah, I have thought about including feedback for users. I want to start off as a kind of, people donating money if they want to help me with a site, instead of like openly like just have people like travel sites advertise on my site. I just want that user aspect first, so I can kind of perfect that aspect before I move forward. When I move forward, say including, users can create a premium account and pay for stuff or whatnot, that's going to take a while. But for now, I want users just to be comfortable adding pictures, advertising the site when it gets good. But just small steps right now. I have a big, vast ideas in my head, and I just got to start somewhere. So just step by step right now.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
I have one question, just one more question.
Yeah, go ahead.
So have you thought about what kind of persona that you have thought about that would be using your site besides travelers?
Bloggers, persona-wise, bloggers. Is that, like, you guys asking more people who would be looking for my site, or what do you mean by personas?
Right, or like, have you thought about, I guess where I'm going at is, as a user, from a traveler, yeah, this would be a good opportunity. But if you're a business owner of a travel company or maybe a resort or something, have you thought about how they would use your site to actually market?
Yeah. So like I said earlier, kind of like.
Did I lose you guys?
What was that? Someone said something. I'm gonna continue. Sorry.
It was Cheryl. It's Cheryl. She froze.
Yeah, my connection's unstable. Sorry.
No, you're
Yeah.
fine. Like I mentioned earlier, the business aspect, I don't want to use business yet, like users yet. what I want to create eventually is that my site gets popular, where I can just, when the algorithm kind of suggests a place, then another step would be having a money, a company can pay me to use use their site to book a place eventually. You know what I mean? Like, for example, if my site matches you to Australia, eventually I'm going to have a business aspect where people, like a travel site, can kind of book their site to show up first. So my users can go to their website first to book plane tickets, flight information, stuff like that. So right now that's in the process of in the works, but functionality wise, or like user wise, or persona wise, that's what I'm looking for the business users eventually.
Yeah,
If that
that
makes
answers your question. Thank you. Yep.
One thought, Min, this is Tara.
Yeah.
I would actually be probably an ideal user for you. I actually don't travel very often, and I don't really know what's out there. So for me, I will volunteer right now to test the site if you roll it out, because this is something that I would love. It's kind of like a dating site except for travel, right?
Yeah.
So one thought too is you could maybe tie some of the questions to the amenities that the hotels offer. So like if I have a pet or if I have kids or all these different things, right? Tie that to, here's a list of hotels that allow pets. Here's a list of hotels that have
Definitely.
a pool. Some of those different pieces, and maybe you could tie the businesses in that way as well. Just a thought.
Definitely. I thank you for that suggestion. I'm just writing that down. Anybody else have questions I can answer right now?
No, but I like that. I like that. What is this? Matching? What did you call it? It's like a dating matching for travelers.
Dating site for travelers.
Yeah, so I was trying to play
great.
around. I've actually used that slogan. I thought about using it, but it was just like didn't make sense enough to use that kind of match. That's why I used the match for travel. It was in my head, but I didn't want to kind of use it for the presentation aspect yet. But definitely, I thought of using that aspect.
Match.travel.com.
Yeah.
That would be so worth it.
Yes.
All right, Min, thank you so much. You're more than welcome to hang out. So if you want to go back into the waiting room, you actually have to end and then go back in, but you're more than welcome to stay. So that way at the end, if there's any additional questions, you're here to answer those. So.
Yeah, I'm gonna definitely hang out. I'm gonna stop share and.
Okay, awesome.
Thank you, everyone, for your time.
Thank you. All right, so next we have Ethan. So let me add him in. He is joining. Hi, Ethan.
Hello.
All right. So if you
How's it
want to
going?
a rundown of kind of an intro, and then tell us about your capstone.
That sounds great. Let me share my screen just to get started. Let's see. All right, perfect. Can everyone see and hear me okay? Awesome. Great. Well, thank you all for taking the time to come out or virtually come out and do this. This is awesome. I think that everyone here at Savvy Coders really appreciates that, myself included. So my name is Ethan Maple, and I have a background in special education, conservation work, and disaster response. And I've always really wanted to learn how to code. I got first exposed to it back in high school when I would sort of dink around on my TI-83 plus graphing calculator and write little helpful programs there for myself in math class. And ever since then, I wanted to learn some more web development so I could sort of build personal projects that I have in mind. So when I happened upon Savvy Coders, it sort of seemed like the perfect fit, and here we are. So throughout this cohort, I've been working on Skegit, which is my capstone project here. And essentially Skegit is a doctor-patient profile, doctor-patient portal that allows doctors to log in from one side and basically create a profile, a schedule of availability, and then patients can log in from the other side and essentially access that schedule, book an appointment with the doctor, and receive confirmation of that booked appointment. I built it using JavaScript, HTML, and CSS, along with a lot of Firebase that I've been learning in the last couple of weeks. And yeah, I'm going to sort of take you through just a walkthrough of my website. So this is the home page here. And from this login screen, you are able to log in as either a doctor or a patient. And this uses Google authentication functionality, but also the code that I wrote basically reaches out to my database once you enter your username and password in, verifies, are you a user, but also are you a doctor or a patient, and directs you to the appropriate portal page. So we'll log in as a pre-created doctor profile page that I've already built. And because we're a doctor, it's going to immediately take us to the doctor portal page. It knows that information about us, given our user credentials. And this would be where a doctor could, sort of access any information they need from their portal side. So, notification settings, upcoming appointments, and then you can edit your profile. So again, this is a pre-created profile, but we'll click on edit and sort of see what exists for Mr. John Lennon is the example user. So if we scroll down, you can see all this is the information that a patient would want to see on the other side when they're learning about this doctor specifically. And all of this was populated on this page via Firebase. So basically when you load this page, it reaches out to Firebase, pulls the information down, and autofills all of these inputs here. And we can also edit these inputs and push that information back up to the database to save our results. So, if John Lennon's bio says all you need is love, and we want to add in, Yellow Submarine as well, then we can add that in, we can hit save, and we go back to our portal, and just to verify that those changes were actually made, let's click on edit your profile again, and you can see there's Yellow Submarine. This time it automatically loaded. So what just happened was we hit save, it pushed it back up to Firebase, and then basically saved it to our database so that it would render on our profile as well as any patients who are viewing the doctor profile from the patient side. So we can save that, and we can also come over here to edit schedule. And this is John Lennon's current availability. So he is surprisingly currently available for every single block of the day. So we can say, oh, we want to make John Lennon not available for this first block here. And when you uncheck it, it turns dark blue, showing it's no longer available. And what happened there is this is powered by Google's real-time database. And so when we uncheck this box, it sends a message to the real-time database saying, change the availability, and then push that information up, pull it back down, realize it's new, changed availability, and style this accordingly. So as we're doing this, patients who are looking at this profile page, there could be a patient in Boston looking at John Lennon's profile page, and as we're unchecking these boxes, they're going to see these changes being made in real time, which is pretty cool and one of the awesome functionality pieces of real-time database, but also something that I made possible via sort of styling the page this way. So we're going to make a recognizable pattern, so we can all remember that, just to sort of show how this works. So basically anyone in the world, again, just saw this update happen live, real time, and we'll save that to make sure we know that, and we can log out and sort of see that from a patient side. So when you come on to Skagit, when initially you don't have to log in, let's wait for that to reload. But yeah, you should be able to, oh, that's good. Well, while we wait for that to load, yeah, typically you can come in and essentially browse as either a guest or as a logged in patient. And there we go, wow. Broadband issues, I guess. So if we're not logged in, you don't have an account, you can hit Browse Doctors, and we are now browsing as a guest. So you can see all these different results on the results page. They're all Beatles members. And here's our good friend, John Lennon. Not a real doctor, mind you. I'm not trying to convey misinformation, especially at an interesting time like this. So we can click on John Lennon, read more about this doctor. And there we see everything is real-time updated. There is the yellow submarine that we just input and saved. And if we scroll down, here's all the rest of his information from the profile, as well as the availability calendar that we just styled like that. And again, that would be visible to users of this website anywhere around the world. Now, as you're clicking around here, you realize as a guest, you can't actually make a reservation. So you have to go down here and say, want to make an appointment, create an account, which we will do. And here's a new patient account. We'll just make a sort of random one. We'll say patient@patient.com. And patient the best. Perfect. And we will create this account. And again, this is going to use Google authentication to create a profile for this person, as well as populating information about them onto the database, acknowledging that they are a patient and directing them to the patient portal accordingly. So now as a logged in patient, we can go book an appointment. We want to book an appointment with John Lennon. We go search doctors. There he is again. There's his bio again. There's up-to-date information because of how the database provides functionality. And let's say we wanted to book an appointment with John Lennon for Wednesday, slot 5. We click on that, and again, that appointment just blinked out of existence for everyone using the web page. So, that user in Boston who's looking at John Lennon's website just saw it go, oh shoot, that just got booked. I missed my opportunity to schedule that appointment. So right now it's sort of in queue. We haven't reserved it, but it's like pending in our name. But we can either confirm it here or say, no thanks, I'd like to book another time slot, which we'll do. We'll say, okay, Wednesday slot 5 wasn't ideal. How about Friday slot 5? We'll book that one. There it is, John Lennon, Friday slot 5. We'll say confirm, schedule it, and boom. Your appointment has been booked with John Lennon. You'll receive an email confirmation shortly. And then we can go back and sort of see that now, here's John Lennon. That slot has been booked. It's now permanently going to be dark blue and unavailable to anyone because we have reserved it. So yeah, that is essentially the functionality of my website and the overall user flow. I'm going to go back to the, actually I want to show you one quick thing. If you have any questions, I do have this about and contact page. This is sort of just my note that, during COVID-19, I want to make sure it's very clear that this is not a legitimate medical website. Again, not trying to promote any misinformation, but also down the road, if any of you have any questions, feel free to use this contact form. It is a functioning contact form that'll sort of push this information up to my database, and then I can view your comments and we can get in touch. But it also provides just more information about me and sort of the process I went into in building this website. But for the meantime, I am happy to answer any questions you may have now or sort of expand upon anything that I might have described and rushed through. So shoot.
So this is Tara, and I'm really excited about this, so I'm jumping in right away.
Sure. Awesome.
So you're kind of my hero conceptually at the moment, because this is something I actually thought about creating, and quite frankly wish it was required for all doctors' offices. But regardless of that, I do have some questions.
By all means.
So one of the biggest challenges, because I think this is a great idea, is once you have this in place, you can schedule everything. But what happens if a doctor runs behind, right? And they want to edit the appointments, rescheduling. If it could do that, this would truly be a miracle, right? So I don't know if you thought about that, but a lot of doctors do run behind, and that can create issues. So do you think that's maybe something that could be added to the site in the future?
I think it's definitely possible. At the moment, I know you can sort of see. Let's get back to a profile page.
And patients canceled too, so it goes both ways.
Exactly, yeah. And so like if, again, with this real-time database, if a patient canceled, I don't currently have that built into the website, then they could cancel and boom, the color
To
turns
be
light
open.
blue again, and it's back in availability. At the moment, I don't have a way for a doctor to edit the duration of these, though I am pretty proud to say that I have some cool like dynamic CSS going on. So if you change, like right now, this has a value of 1, this has a value of 1, this is 1.5, this is 2, and that's sizing them. So if you go in from the database side and actually change that slot length from like 2 to 5, say, then this would immediately change size with that real-time dynamic styling again, which doesn't do much for the question you're bringing up. It's just sort of something that ultimately a doctor would be able to edit their time slots and their length and have a more custom calendar than this, pre-selected one. But
Yeah.
I guess I don't have a solution for the live, in the span of a day as a doctor, their appointment changes or runs long. But I would definitely be something I'd want to develop because it's never going to go so perfectly according to plan, especially with doctors, right?
Right. I do like the real-time aspect that you added in there. I think that's really cool. And then the only other thing I was thinking about is if you have patients, depending on what information they're entering, right, when they're setting up a profile, I was just wondering not to get all HIPAA on you, but yeah, I guess you'd have to figure out what you're allowed, to do from that standpoint, and how, if that's the case, how that data is stored and secured. That's the only other thing.
Yes. Yeah. And yeah, I at the moment I only have an email and first name, last name, and even that I don't know. My medical background is minimal to say the least. But, I do envision this sort of being usable by not only doctors but really anyone with scheduling needs. Anyone like a hairstylist or a dog groomer who they just want to have a quick, easy schedule they can pop up online, and someone can say, I want to book that slot. But I do, I'm well aware that with doctors, it's, that.
Well, they need it.
Yes. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Especially,
in my opinion.
yeah. Especially doctors who aren't working in a big office, they might just want to have a private practice out of their home or own office. And I think it could be very useful for people like that.
Yeah. I like the idea. Good job.
Yeah, I want to piggyback on that. I do like the idea. I think this is a viable product that could potentially be, there's a market for this. I have a couple of things.
Sure.
It just so happened I'm in healthcare and I deal with provider data.
Oh, well, perfect.
So there's a lot of things that I would say, if you are thinking this is a market for, that particular, providers, there are, you may want to think about compliance, regulatory, and what's allowed, because even with provider data, there are a lot of governance around it, especially if you post them in a search function. So if you were to search for a doctor, for example, any website where you have to put a doctor's information has to go through some type of regulatory.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Demographics and their education, things like that, has to go through credentialing. So just want to give you a heads up, and that probably would be applicable for, I would say, most of your healthcare kind of providers, not just doctors, nurses, PAs, all that, you name it. Now, the other thing, I think this would be great for, let's say, if I'm a startup yoga instructor.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, this would be something cool that I would probably use, because and if you have that live functionality, that would be easy to use.
Sure.
I do have a question. When you had that one page where the slots, have you thought about kind of having dates? Because sometimes, or is that slot representing a day or a date? Because I got a little bit confused on your availability calendar.
Yeah. And that's pretty much just something that's still in the works. I didn't quite have time to come up with a way to say, here's 7 days of the week. I literally just did 5 and sort of envisioning this being a Monday through Friday type deal. But, you know, going forward, I would want it to not say slot 1. I'd want it to say, you know, 9 to 9:45, and up here it would say Monday, Tuesday with the actual calendar date. And then it would also have, it would have like arrows here that you could scroll through to be like next week. At the moment, that's, you know, something I'm still working on, but yeah, the calendar would definitely have to be fleshed out and a little bit more, you know, scrolling on into the future and with a little bit more clarity as to what exactly you're booking, for sure.
That makes sense. And the other thing is, let's say, I don't know if you've thought about, say I'm Barnes Jewish, for example, and I need a scheduling product. Hey, look at you, you have something. You know, how would you kind of, obviously you would have to connect and integrate with the system they have today. Have you thought about, like, you know, APIs or anything that you would open up to that connection?
Yeah, I have, yeah, not a little bit, yes. I thought, like, if, you know, if it went bigger scale, that'd be really cool to be able to integrate it. And admittedly, this is sort of like a stepping stone project for me for a couple other things I have in mind that will definitely need to have APIs involved. But at the moment, I am trying to get the functionality down first in terms of, like, you know, if this were just like an individual doctor, individual, you know, hairstylist or yoga instructor, like, how would the functionality work? How would the bookability work? And then I think I would start thinking about, you know, meshing it in within a pre-existing system. Again, I would need to learn a lot more about information security in that case, because I do know that then if we're integrating with medical software, then it becomes a lot more high end. So, but that'd be very cool to do.
Looks good. Thanks. This is great. Thank you for the demo.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
Hey, Ethan, this is Chris. Hey, how did
Chris,
you get involved with the Google real-time stuff?
So the Savvy Coders curriculum does introduce you to Firebase. It was one of the things that was sort of later in the cohort, and I knew coming in that I wanted to learn HTML, JavaScript, CSS, and some sort of database. I had no idea what. And then they said, well, we're learning Firebase, you know, midway through. And I said, okay, sounds great. So I did some research and found out that Firebase was exactly what I needed, because they have, you know, the Fire Store, which houses the doctor profile data, and then the real-time database, which, you know, handles all of this stuff. So we didn't do much on real-time in class. We did a bit of Firestore and Google authentication. And then I said, I'm going to teach myself the Firestore, the real-time. And so, yeah, Google has really good documentation on it, and it's relatively straightforward. A lot of trial and error got me to this level of functionality.
Very nice. So did you like doing the development on the API side or the front-end CSS HTML side better?
Ooh, I liked both for different reasons. I think probably my biggest challenge was getting sucked into one or the other, like spending, you know, an entire evening doing CSS styling and making it look good, and then realizing that there's like zero functionality to it, and I should probably have done that first, and then going down this rabbit hole of functionality, and then going back to my webpage and realizing that it looks like absolute garbage. So whatever I was working on, I really enjoyed, but it's definitely a challenge to sort of integrate the both. But I think I was probably in the long run more frustrated by CSS and making it look good, because that is not my forte, compared to the backend integration with the Firebase.
Gotcha. Makes sense.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Ethan. We have one more student, and that is David. So Ethan, you're more than welcome to hang out and answer questions at the end.
Awesome.
I am going to add David.
I will stop share. Thank you all. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone.
Hi, David. So if you want to do a quick intro and share your project.
All right, I'm ready. How's everybody doing today? Can you hear me okay?
We're good.
All right. Well, thank you for coming and making the time available to meet with my cohorts and I. My name is David Kemp. I'm an experienced technology person, And I joined Savvy Coders to learn to code properly. I picked up a lot of things over the years, and I thought it would be a good idea to add that capability to my skill set to meet and network with some people from that line of business. And ultimately, I think it'll benefit me in my career going forward. My project is an application I call Peer Pledge. And I don't know about you, but technology has given us so many tools to do certain things all in one place, right? So I envisioned a tool that would allow you to donate to a charity, any charity, from one spot, from one platform, and to challenge your friends, challenge your peers, integrate it with social media, and create a giving campaign that would transform Giving Tuesday into a everyday phenomenon. So let's take a little look here at some of the details. Peer Pledge is a simple, easy to use pledge maker. You simply log and register, and that's where we collect your data. We know data is valuable and it's actionable. You can log in and keep track of your pledges. You can create a pledge to a charity and invite a friend and challenge them.
Hey, David?
Yeah.
Can you share your screen?
Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I wish you would have mentioned it sooner.
Sorry.
Oh, that's quite all right. I am happy to share my screen. My apologies. All right, so let's go back here just a second. So as I said, Peer Pledge is just a simple application designed to allow you to challenge your peers in pledging to a charity. As part of my project, and this was standard for all of the cohorts in the classes, develop an application in HTML, CSS, JavaScript. Mine uses Firebase extensively. Firebase is the database, Axios for API connections, and for all of you who speak tech. For those of you who don't, I won't name them all. But it's now deployed as an external website, open to the public on Netlify. Let's take a look at the actual project. So it's pretty simple. It scales down into for any device. I can show you that in just a minute. It allows you to register, and as I said, registration is important because what? It gives us data, and the data is valuable. I won't bore you with going all the way through, but you just simply have to put in your first name, last name, email, and a password, and it will log you in. And it will add an account, welcome you to this form. So let's just skip to a sign in, and we'll go with Mary Rogers, who has an account. So we just simply sign in as Mary, and it welcomes us to Mary. Tells us who all the top numbers are and the top charities that have been given to. Mary can, future Mary will be able to do some additional things. But we've captured that pledge in the database. We have that data. It's very valuable. And Mary can come back later and see all of her things. Any questions so far? Pretty simple functionality, allows you to come in and get connected and make a pledge. You don't have to log in, but I certainly encourage them because, again, that data is valuable.
I just have a quick question, David. In terms of tracking the date, like when the pledge was made, I know some individuals, and depending on the amount of the pledge, might be needing that information for tax purposes. So is there anywhere that that information is stored that they can access?
That information is stored today, and as a future enhancement, we will be able to provide that back on in your dashboard section of the application when you log in.
Nice. Okay, sorry, go ahead.
Not there today, but we're working on it. It's not far away. So a pledge is really simple. You just enter a friend's email address, so we can just enter Mr. Adams at AAA, and charity we're going to put in. Let's just go with the World Health Organization. That's a popular topic today, isn't it? you enter your email. So her email is Mary Rogers at email.com. And she's simply going to send $5 today. She's been very busy. Just send the pledge, and it responds thanking you for the pledge to your charity, logs that data in the database, and there you go. A little bit more information about this as far as building this project. 144 hours dedicated class time with Savvy Coders, and I'm certain I put an additional 250 hours in 3 hours a day, and for the last 12 weeks. One of the ways I kept track of that time and what actions that I really needed to be working on was through Trello. Trello is a Kanban style tool that allows us to put all of our activities in and keep track of them and move those around kind of like a Kanban board. And then again, every week I just took a stock of where I was in terms of time, what I was going to be able to accomplish, how well it was going to look. And I tried to incorporate agile methods in the sense that I'm reviewing, inspecting, and adapting every week. In shorter times, for a week sprint was kind of right for me. Future enhancements, you mentioned one of those is my dashboard, getting that information, being able to log in at tax time and get all the charities that you've donated to. We're going to pull more of that data from Firebase into the user interface and be able to show more charities, for example, or statistics for the day. We're really close to being able to enabling a charity search, which will allow you to go out and hit an API on the internet and bring back all the registered charities by the IRS. There's so many of them out there, I had no idea. So filtering those was just a little bit more of a challenge. Notifications, obviously an email or something to your phone to let you know that your confirmation. And then ultimately I want to integrate with Facebook and Google for sign-in so that we can capture those peers. You can just select a friend and go crazy letting them all know about your donations. And that is essentially it. That's Pure Pledge. What questions do you have for me?
Hey, David, it's Christy with Doherty.
Hi, Christy.
Hi. Hey, as somebody who actually I've done rescue for 12 years. So Giving Tuesday is a big day for us, along with others. This is a great app. Really like it. One question. So on the end, most of this is pledges. How do you have it planned for people who pledge to make the payment? Is it an automatic through PayPal?
That is a future enhancement. Obviously,
okay.
There's a shopping cart involved, and they're having all the data to the correct respond to and remittance information for each of those charities. I think the first stage, though, would be for us to put the website information on, and then as we, depending on how long it takes to build that basket functionality. But I do anticipate that the best way for this to be a good tool for people to use is to be able to directly send those payments, which would, I think, require us to be a 503c charity as well.
Yeah. Yep. If you're going to pull them off the IRS, they'll have to be 501c3 stuff. Yep. Absolutely. But no, this is a great, easier, one shop instead of everybody having each of their own individual pages through Giving Tuesday. It's a little crazy. So. Yeah.
So that was my thought. And every night you see on TV, there are people advertising this for. You get your pen and paper out and write it down. And you've got 30 websites in it. So,
yeah, no, absolutely. Oh, this is a great start. This is really good. Thank you.
Yeah, this is a good, I like the website. I think the idea is there. The idea is great. I do have a question. So you had on the dashboard, have you kind of thought about maybe kind of having like a profile of the charity? Say I'm a new, I don't know, I'm a person looking to give money because I want to give back. and I don't know what's out there. So I want to be able to have some type of way to look for a one-stop shop where that I can actually have an idea of what the charity is about.
Absolutely, and I think right there, we talk about it in having a charity search functionality that that allows you to get that information. We have an API from a tool, an API that has all that information. In fact, it lists all the filings and the recent filings and the auditing and all, and it's a full service API that just has so much information to incorporate that I think we can put that on there with a search, and you can spend all day researching. Ultimately, that's our goal. But to be able to just type in the name or a letter and search or category, I think that's something that we want to get to.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Cheryl.
David, what's the biggest challenge you had to face when creating the site from a development perspective?
Well, I think it's really the biggest challenge, and it is me and my abilities at this point in time. Beyond that, I mean, I think the thing that may have given me the most trouble was the API. The other challenge was that because so much of this information, so much of this this tool relies on the database, and that being something we didn't touch upon until week 9. It was a sprint to the end for me. So I think those are probably 2 of the bigger ones.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Anybody else?
So David, this is Chris. So on your first slide, you mentioned the Firebase API, and you mentioned another one, something that started with A.
Oh, Axios for streamlines and the process of communicating with an API.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
That's a standard part of the Savvy Coders curriculum, and pretty much all of our cohorts are using it.
Sounds good.
Any others?
Okay, David, if you want to stop sharing screen, we'll get everybody back on here. Were there any other questions for Ethan, for Min, Nathan, before we jump off?
No, I just want to say great job, everybody. This is really, you guys have presented something really cool in a short period of time that kind of shows how much time and effort you put into it. And I want to say I enjoyed it. I haven't been to any of the demo day. I've been meaning to, but thank you very much for the invite.
Yeah, and I just want to add, so we typically run classes 4 nights a week for 12 weeks, Monday through Thursday, and we're down in the Cortex, so we're in an actual classroom. So these guys are hands-on with in-person instructors and TAs and all of that. And we got hit with this whole COVID-19 thing and had to figure out, okay, how do we do this remote? How is this going to work with a group of people that's used to seeing people day in and day out, and flipping it over to a virtual learning platform? So these guys, not only did they accomplish what they accomplished with building their capstone projects in only 12 weeks, but they also had this huge hurdle of trying to figure out and working with us and keeping us on our toes how to do all of this stuff virtually. And I think they succeeded, and it just totally blows my mind with what they've accomplished in such a short period of time. So.
I think that's our new normal.
Great job.
Yeah, you guys did an amazing job. This is my first demo day, so you guys, yeah, great job.
Yeah,
So
agree.
So I just wanted to mention one thing before everybody drops off, if I didn't miss it already. But I was looking at Ethan's app while he was doing the demos and watching that real-time update. There was virtually no lag in there, and that was really cool. And I wanted to mention earlier, but I didn't want to cut anybody's time. But yeah, if you guys want to check that out, it's pretty neat.
Thanks, James.
I've seen it. It is neat.
Yeah, Google real time is wild. blows my mind.
All right. So we've recorded this, and so
Good job.
we have everybody's resumes. I had emailed you these guys' resumes, but there are 8 more students, 9 more that are very similar to these 4. So we'll get that up so you guys can see the rest of the presentations and their capstone projects. But yeah, Christy, Chris, any of you guys, if there's anybody that you would like to have a follow-up conversation with, just reach out, just let us know. So good job, guys.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Yes, very good
Thanks.
job. Yeah, thanks, guys.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Take care.
Thank you.
All right, take care. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Are we all going?